Scott, thank you so much for joining today on the SLO Lounge.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It is certainly a pleasure to be here with you and all of your listeners.
Well, I know it's you're very busy, so I just wanted to, take this opportunity to introduce the community with many different people around town, community leaders such as yourself, businesses, artists, all sorts of things. So, feel free to, I guess, introduce yourself. Like you said, you've been here just a few years now. But tell us a little. I mean, I know where you came from, but maybe the listeners don't know yet.
No, great. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you. And I've been in the community now for 3 years. It was 3 years in May. I came here to San Luis Obispo for the police chief's job, and have really just enjoyed every aspect of it. We have such a welcoming community. They've certainly welcomed myself and my family with open arms, and we've begun doing some really great work together. For me personally, it's really, I've been in law enforcement for almost 28 years now. 25 of those was right outside of Dallas in Texas. And so I served at a police department there, and then looked for an opportunity to become a police chief, but really didn't feel inspired until we had the events of that circulating around George Floyd, and that really inspired me to step up into a position of leadership, to do better for law enforcement, and to really leave something behind that I could be proud of for our profession. So when I made the decision to be a chief, I looked at many different areas to accomplish that, and found no better opportunities than San Luis Obispo. One, just because of the great community connection, and then two, we're going to do, and we're doing things here to really leave a lasting impact on law enforcement. And you couldn't ask for a better location. This is just a fantastic community, great beach location, beautiful downtown, and a really vibrant and forward-looking community.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to talking more about that too. I always at the end like to talk to people about favorite things to do, stuff like that. Yeah. But even going back to your time in Texas and things, what really inspired you to a career in public service in law enforcement?
I really wanted to have a career, one that, and people say, law enforcement is really not a job, it's a calling. And I can tell you it honestly is. I wanted to be in a job where I could work outside, work with our community, work with people directly. And in fact, I went to college and began studying microbiology. And so you probably can't think of two things further apart than law enforcement and microbiology. But I learned, early on in my education that looking through a microscope and just really that setting was not really attractive to me. I knew I wasn't probably going to make a huge impact in whatever I did and if I pursued that. So about midstream, I decided, hey, look, I'm going to give law enforcement a chance and see if this is for me. I knew people that had done it. There's a few people in my family who served in law enforcement. And so made the decision, and it's been absolutely the best career I could ever want. And I think for me, it's really that sense of fulfillment. And at the end of the day, every day is not a great day. I mean, obviously, we deal with people struggling with some of the worst things that you can imagine. But at the end of the day, especially when you can give, somebody that attention, that help, you really feel like you've made a difference. And I think when people talk about law enforcement being a calling and providing that sense of fulfillment, that's really what it's about. And I know it was for me, and still is for me, even though I'm not necessarily on the street every day. But having that sense of pride and that sense of fulfillment really makes it, continues to make it enjoyable for me, I guess.
Yeah. What a beautiful sentiment, because, it's like you said, it can be a great times, but also very difficult times. Yeah. And so, we need people who are, really feeling that inner desire rather than just, I wonder what jobs are out there. I think that's such a great point.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we're connecting with the younger generation, and we're really selling that sense of fulfillment and purpose. And people can work remote. They can have lots of different types of careers now that we've never seen before. And law enforcement really offers something unique to individuals who want to connect with their community and have that sense of fulfillment. And at the end of the day, again, not every day is a great day. Trust me, there's many days that are difficult, and we question why we do what we do. But on those days where you are able to really help somebody and make that connection, the sense of fulfillment is like none other. And so I think for us, that's one of the unique things that are continuing to attract people to this type of work, because it's dangerous. It's not always the best paid, and the hours aren't great. So there's lots of different things that are challenging about this work. But if you can do it and you can do it well, it will leave you with the sense of pride and fulfillment that I think few other careers can offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And personally, not being in law enforcement, but doing a lot of different multimedia projects with different agencies up in Santa Clara County and things, and now getting a chance to talk with you, it's so true. I get to see that so often, how people get such a dynamic place to work and also do things that are not always fun, but you really see the difference that it makes for those people that they are able to connect with on really challenging days.
Yeah, and when we talk about SLO in particular, SLO is a very challenging community for a number of reasons. And I tell every officer, every employee that I hire, we sit down and have a conversation much like this on day one. And I tell them how fortunate they are, or sometimes they tell me how fortunate they are to be in our community. And I said, this community will push you to be better. They will push the work that we do to be better. And that's, for me, one of the main reasons why I'm here, is because this community has such high expectations of the people that work here. And people work really hard to be here and be part of our SLO community, and they expect the best service that we can provide. And I personally really and driven by that challenge and want to make sure that we're delivering that next level of service. But I'm very clear with every employee that I sit down and talk to. I said, there are much easier places to be a police officer or a records technician or a public safety dispatcher. There's other places you can do that with less volume of calls and less level of expectation. But I think there's very few places that offer that sense of pride and accomplishment that you will get here in SLO.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, I guess, about some of those challenges, having gotten to experience law enforcement in probably a pretty different place for many different reasons in Texas versus California, whether that's in law enforcement or just in life in general? Can you talk about then some of the challenges that may be imparted to the sworn and professional staff of this police department?
Sure. There's a saying, things that happen in California, they start here and then move east across the country. And I'm very proud of that, because I feel like in law enforcement specifically, we're really moving the needle forward. We're offering a new type of service. We believe in what we call least harm approaches, where all of our policies and all of our actions are geared towards the most least impactful outcome possible. We enforce the law, and we enforce the law aggressively to make sure that we have a safe community. But we can do that in a way that's least impactful for not only our survivors, for our victims, but for the criminal offenders as well. We want to make sure that again, we're enforcing the law to the best of our ability, but not making things worse by showing up. And we've seen time and time again, and especially other parts of the country, where officers have come to a call and it escalated in a way that it shouldn't have, and we had bad outcomes from that. We're not perfect, and those things can happen here in our community as well, but our objectives are always focused on preserving life and having the least impactful outcomes as possible. So that's one of the challenges, that here from California. I often get, people ask me, so you moved from Texas to California. A lot of people may be going the other direction. I said, no, it's true. But I came here to be challenged. And like I said earlier in our conversation, that I want our community to want more out of their police department and want more out of their police leadership. And so if I want to leave a profession that's better than when I found it, this is a place where that can happen. Very, very grateful for my Texas community. And I spent, again, half of my life there, and incredible police support. But with that, there was not a lot of demand to do things differently. And so for me, I'm looking for a place where we can do things differently, that we will be supported by our community and have those better outcomes.
Wow, what a great sentiment too. Challenging yourself, wanting to grow yourself, but also wanting to make things better for the people around you as well. Yeah, that's so cool. So then I wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, the circumstances coming around you arriving to California, because, some of those challenges befall your staff as well. so tragically, Detective Luca Benedetti was killed in line of duty just days before your arrival. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then, talking about how your commitment, I guess, to emotional, safe support for the people who want to work here or already do work here.
Yeah, thank you, Nick, and I appreciate you you bringing that up and recognizing the challenges with really with my day one of coming to SLO. And I had a lot different vision of what being a police chief would be, especially my first day on the job and meeting a new community. I had no idea it was going to be under the circumstances that it was, the tragic circumstances. And so May 10th, 2021, we lost Detective Luca Benedetti, who was serving a search warrant, was shot and killed, as well as another officer, another detective that was shot during that incident as well. And so it really devastated our community, and it devastated our police department. Anytime you have a loss of life in the line of work we do, it's tragic and it's impactful. But when you have something like that happen in a tight-knit, small community such as ours, it's absolutely devastating. I was set to begin work on the 13th of May. This incident happened on the evening of the 10th. And luckily, I'd had many conversations with the city manager about onboarding and the schedule. And I'd asked the city manager respectfully, I said, I have everything. I'm ready to come to work if you will allow me. And he did. So I came to work on the 10th at the time of the incident. My job was really to stay out of the way because the department, already had an excellent interim chief that was doing everything that needed to be done. And in addition, we had still have a very strong peer support program. And so that peer support program stepped up and did the things it needed to do to support all of our employees during this unimaginable loss. And it really opened my eyes to the department that I was coming into, how well put together they were, how much this department is a family, and how much they care about each other. And it was evident within the first minutes of me coming on the job. So since then, again, as I mentioned, I thought it was going to be a lot different than it turned out to be. But I'm grateful because we have really focused on officer wellness. That has been the really main point that I've focused on, and that our team has continued to focus on since that day. How we're supporting all of our team, how we are taking care of the officers that have come on board since then. What are we doing to make sure that our officers and all of our police employees are happy and healthy, especially having gone through such a traumatic incident. So it continues to be a focus of our administration and how we're keeping people healthy, and how we're supporting our greater law enforcement family. And so unbelievable challenge that we had and still have. Our department is still going through a healing phase, and it's just going to be who we are looking ahead. And we continue to do things at the department to keep Luca's legacy with us. And we tell all of our new employees about what a tremendous person Luca was, and the legacy that he leaves for us. And so we focus really, really intently on sharing his story and making sure our employees are healthy.
Yeah, such unimaginable tragedy, and also heartening to hear that you're keeping his legacy alive, as well as the support that you felt from the community surrounding that event as well.
It was a turning point, I think, and I had obviously not been exposed to the community before that day, but I visited with many of our staff who said just how much the community did support them, and it wasn't evident before because we had a lot of high profile issues. Again, we're talking the heels of George Floyd and a lot of other social movements that were occurring. And so the previous 18 months up to that tragedy were already very challenging for our community, and the police did not necessarily feel that universal support because of what was going on, not only here in SLO, just nationally. It was not a great time. But since that tragedy, the community really did step up and show their support and love for our first responders. And we've done absolutely everything we could to reciprocate that back to our community because we want to make sure that we maintain that trust and that support.
Yeah. It's such a unique career too. because with events that happen like this, or with societal things that happen even in other places in the country, that has to be a roller coaster ride to with the community, of having to support them, they're supporting you. I mean, it's always supporting each other regardless, but there's just always things that are making you, I guess, approach the day in a different way.
It's a relationship.
Yeah.
And like any relationship, you have to focus on it, and you have to be cognizant of what's going on and what can impact that relationship. The relationship with our community is, I'll tell you, the most important aspect of the work that we do. And if we don't have a positive relationship, and if we're not supporting our community and not being supported, we can't keep our community safe. And so making sure we maintain that relationship is our highest priority. But that also means being in tune with what impacts it. Are we talking? Are we listening to our community? And so it was made clear to me very early on when I got here that this is a community that has a lot to say. And also we want to give voice and make sure that we're listening to what our community wants and that we're doing that. And I often tell our employees that we serve at the privilege of our community, and they dictate, they tell us the type of enforcement or non-enforcement that they want from their police department. And we have to be in lockstep with our community in doing that to make sure that we're meeting their needs.
I've heard the term before, and maybe this is kind of what you're talking about right now, community policing. Is that kind of what we're talking about? And also, what does that mean? It
is. So I'm a little outspoken when it comes to community policing, I'll tell you. In fact, I had a question similar to this when they were considering hiring me. And my answer, I thought, well, I'm probably not going to get the job now. So what I said was, they asked me, what are your thoughts on community policing? How are you going to bring community policing to SLO? Things like that. And what I said was, I'm not a fan of the term community policing because, in my opinion, all policing, if done right, is community policing. And when you look at the history of policing and you talk about Sir Robert Peel and, the police are the community and the community are the police. And these were things that were talked about 200 years ago. That is the fundamental elements of policing, is that you are engaged with your community and that the community's will is done through the police department, not vice versa. And so for me, all policing should be community policing. And so I'm very careful not to put, terms or put it in a box, because everything that we do should be community focused. And so, when we talk about community policing, yes, all policing should be community policing. There's things that we do that are unique, I believe, that you could call community policing. We have a police advisory committee. We have what we call a roundtable committee. And so this is bringing in broader elements of the community to help us craft policy and objectives. And so we do that. But I would do that no matter what we called it. I just think that's the right way to police.
I think that's a great answer. Yeah. So that's what you mentioned in this process.
I did. And I was like, I don't know if, I just torpedoed myself. But, it's a buzzword. And the reason we say community policing is because for decades we didn't do it. And we were focused on what we call traditional or high impact policing. So there was lots of other policing strategies and philosophies that we've used over the years to different, varying levels of success. And then now I'm very grateful to see within the course of my career, we have gone back to our roots and we are doing what we call true community policing as it was envisioned. And that's exciting.
So is that focusing on, I don't know if there's a difference between focusing on, I guess, proactivity versus people saying this is what's going on in the community, focus on these things. Is it just saying there's more of a conversation with the public? It
is a conversation. It's an open-ended conversation where, first of all, you must have the relationships and the connection to hear. You want to be part of the narrative, part of the conversation. And if you don't have that established with your community, you're not doing community policing because you're not hearing what the desires are or how effective you're being. And so it's good to always have that conversation going. Then we can tailor our operational policies and procedures to achieve those objectives by which the community have expressed. It doesn't mean locking up as many people as possible. So, proactive policing can be done in many different ways and still be community policing, making those contacts. But we also promote positive contacts. Not every stop has to be a ticket. Not every contact has to end up in somebody, going to jail for some reason. And so kind of reverting back when I talk about least, harm objectives, looking for those ways to have positive interactions, because our community is small enough that the people you talk to today, you're going to see them again for sure. And so building those relationships, and we come across people who may have done something out in public that, objectionable, possibly criminal. Maybe today's not the day they go to jail or get a ticket. Maybe today's a day we build a relationship, and then next time we have a better outcome. And sometimes that's not the case, and we do have to take them to jail, as you can imagine. But it's looking at problems with a much broader range of options. And again, jail and citations are just one small part of the equation for the work that we do. And looking at all the different ways to approach a problem and have the best possible outcome is the challenge to our officers.
Well, I would imagine your officers need to be both very skilled, with tactics, with just that emotional intelligence to understand a situation in a whole part. So can you talk then about kind of training to approach situations that way, or just training in general that allows for the best possible scenario in any situation when someone is going to ultimately go to jail for something, or, being able to look at something with more discretion, with more objectionality?
Sure. Really two aspects I think come to mind. One, we offer a wide variety of training to our officers. And so we have, of course, tactics skills. We expect to be, really ahead of the curve in that area. But we also train in what we call crisis intervention training. And so all of our officers receive a high level of training to ensure that they are well equipped to handle people that may be suffering, some type of mental crisis or even healthcare issues, that we can spot those effectively, that we can de-escalate, and we know the other resources we can bring in to partner to have a better outcome. And so crisis intervention training is offered in our academy, which is great. And so every officer coming out of a training program in the state of California, and I don't know the exact number. I think it's anywhere between 8 to 12 hours of training, which is not a lot for crisis intervention. And so we mandate that all of our officers have at least 80 hours of training, and that they've had, not only the state mandate, but additional training to make sure that they're equipped to address those really complicated situations that we see every day out on the street. And again, when I talk about least harm approaches, it's recognizing, is somebody having a mental episode? Do they need psychological care? Do they need medical care? Or, is it a situation where, this could be a drug-induced situation? And so being able to differentiate some of those nuances to kind of break down the behavior that we're seeing gives us a better variety of tools to deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear the dedication, absolutely, in how passionate you are about all the things that build up towards positive outcomes, whether that's de-escalation in the sense of, talking to somebody about corrective action, or like you said, needing to make an arrest. Yeah. And I get a chance to see your officers around. I feel like it's just such a great relationship, like you said, that you're building and fostering with the community. And on the other side, I wanted to talk about, again, we've touched on just the people who work not necessarily out on patrol, for example, but in the office administratively, things like that. Can you talk a little bit about the pride you have for those people and the dedication they have to this department and community as well?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And again, I mentioned this a little earlier on, that we really do view and feel that our department is a family. And I know every department will tell you that. My last department said the same thing. But I really feel that is the case here in San Luis Obispo. Every part of our operations supports one another. And so as a community member, you may only see an officer driving around in a police car, hopefully not behind you, pulling you over. But you will, that may be the only contact that you see with the department. However, behind the scenes, we have a whole group of investigative bureau, our detectives, that are taking those cases, working those leads, furthering those really complex investigations. You also have a large records department that's responsible for all of the citations and cases that come in, they have to be filed and appropriately sorted for public records and things like that. Then you have our 911 communications. And so anytime you call 911, you're getting a hold of one of our staff members that has to direct that call either to police or EMS or fire services. So that's a big chunk of the equation. And then you also have police administration. And so behind the scenes, my leadership team, as well as all the different analysts that support our budget and our inter-office filing and everything that happens inside the department. We have a SNAP program, which is essentially student officers who go out and handle low-level, noise type violation calls. We also have, I'm really proud of this, our community service officer program. And so if you've been downtown, you may see some uniformed people that they're not armed, they're not sworn, they wear a different uniform, and they handle low-level offenses like drinking, smoking, noise in public. They handle a lot of those type of calls downtown. And so a wide variety of different employees that help keep our community safe, and we all work together, again, as a team and as a family to make sure that our community is getting the best service possible.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah. Is it too that you then have an opportunity yourself to go out and then intermix with your staff on the street, your staff in the office? Like, what does a day in the life of Chief Scott look like?
Well, so I do a lot of interviews. So I talk to a lot of different people. For me, getting out into the community or riding with the police officer or stopping by our dispatch center is truly a privilege. And I say that because I don't get to do that enough. But those are the things I really, really enjoy doing. Every year for Christmas, I pick up a car. I'll try to give someone a day off, and I'll go take a shift, and I'll go out and work the street. And for me, that is one of the greatest days of the year because I'm back in a police car. I feel like a police officer out there doing the work that I was drawn to when I hired on. Again, I'm not nearly as effective as a police officer because it's been a long time since I've wrote a police report, honestly. But to be out in the community and have that contact really is exciting for me. And so just an opportunity, when I get to see our staff and interact, those are the really great days that I have. Aside from that, I go to a lot of meetings, as you can imagine. So running our police department, we have a team of about 95, so we're just under 100. Our budget is, a little bit north of, 15 million. And so it's a fairly large operation to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And so I spend a lot of times in a lot of meetings with my other department head leaders. We have a great team at the city level. But I do spend a lot of time working to support the department. And unfortunately, it doesn't mean I get a lot of time with our staff.
Well, I definitely hear that excitement in your voice talking about getting to cruise around and stuff. Yeah. So then again, talking about how you've been here for a few years now and your relationship with the community, what are some of the things that you like to do outside of work in San Luis Obispo and the county in general?
Yeah. So moving from Texas and the North Texas area, I love all things water related. So any opportunities to go to the beach, to take the family to the beach, we really enjoy that. And so the water's a little cold for me, so I'm still getting used to the water. But anytime we can go to the beach, that's certainly a treat for us. I've taken up paddle boarding, so you may see me out there maybe on a weekend trying to paddleboard. I'm learning to do that. So, and then of course, bike riding and hiking, and that's really one of the things that just makes this such a special place. Is year round we can do any of those activities. Which are really kind of rare in other places of the country. I took some photos last year where we went out and paddleboarded for Thanksgiving and sent them back home to my friends who were freezing in Texas and said, hey, I'm just out here paddleboarding. How's your Thanksgiving going? But those are the things that just really, really brings joy to being here and enjoying all the wonderful things that the Central Coast has to offer.
Absolutely. Had you been to California before working here?
I have. I've traveled through here a couple times. I had two family members that lived here many other years ago. And my wife, when we met, actually was living in California. And so we knew that someday we would want to come back here as a family. And we're just fortunate that worked out for us. But every opportunity I had to come through California was just a delight. I mean, I saw how wonderful the state was and how beautiful it was and how friendly the people were. And I always hoped that someday I could raise our family here in this community.
Yeah. Do you get a chance to go back to Texas still?
I do occasionally.
Yeah.
I still have some friends and family there, and so I do make the trip back. I try to plan it when it's not summer, and so I've learned that over the 3 years I've been here, I acclimated rather quickly to the temperate climate. So when I go back home and experience the humidity and the 100+ temperatures, I don't do so well in that environment anymore. But I do like to go back and again see my friends and family, and of course have them come out and visit our family as well.
So talking activities, but now something like food. Texas food, California food. I know there's a lot of barbecue out there. How does the food compare here? I know there's plenty of places downtown and beyond. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Food here, and I tell this to my friends in Texas, food here is some of the best that I've had in the world, honestly. Everything is very fresh, and it doesn't matter what type of food you're enjoying. It's all very good. And so we have some things in Texas that I'm a little partial to that you don't have here. Brisket, very hard to find brisket really? Here in San Luis Obispo. But I've converted over to tri-tip, so I'm a tri-tip fan. I like that now. And then, of course, we have Tex-Mex in California, or I'm sorry, in Texas. And I've not really found any Tex-Mex here, so to speak. So those brisket and Tex-Mex, two of the things that I really miss from being back home, and I eat it every time I'm back in Texas. But it's really opened my eyes to some new, food adventures here in SLO that I've really enjoyed. And the strawberries here are just ridiculous. I mean, strawberries are outstanding. And I don't know if it's a California thing. I don't know if it's a San Luis thing, but the strawberries here are the best in the world. I mean, hands down, the best.
Interesting. Are we talking farmers market, or do you go anywhere particular?
Absolutely. Farmers market is the best. I heard I have a source that tells me there's some good ones. I think it's in Grover. I can't remember the name of the place in Grover that has the best, quote, the best strawberries. But any strawberry I've had here has just been off the chart, like really good.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Take some strawberries out paddleboarding. It sounds like a great weekend.
That's a great day.
SLO. Yeah. Before we get out of here, I did want to talk a little bit about just, speaking to the community, people maybe considering a career in law enforcement. What do the recruitment efforts look like from your department? And what would you tell to anybody thinking about this job?
Policing is an amazing job. It takes a certain type of person, but anybody can do it. And what I had a swearing in the other day of a new officer, and part of the speech that I give to he and his family, and what I said was, I can train anybody to be a cop. It's a tough job, but it's not necessarily, technically difficult. The challenge that we have in law enforcement and policing is finding people that have the compassion, people that have the empathy and the care for their community. That's what we hire for. I'll hire a person that's a caring, committed, compassionate person, and I'll train them to be a police officer. That's what we're looking for here in SLO. And so I'll tell anybody that's listening that if you care about your community and you want a job that gives back to you every bit as much as you give to our community, this is a job for you. And so for us, we're very fortunate because staffing in general has been very, very difficult in policing. And so we're dealing with a staffing crisis across all law enforcement. We're very fortunate in that we're not full strength, but we're getting very close because people are coming to SLO to be officers. We're attracting, what we think are the best and brightest candidates out there that want to do this difficult work in a challenging environment with a great supportive family. That's what we offer. And so I tell people, if you have any interest at all in law enforcement, give us a try. And it may not be out in a police car. You may end up wanting to be one of our CSOs. You don't have to be sworn to do this job, or you may want to be in communications and help people over the phone, which is a really, really difficult job and very rewarding. So there's many different aspects of law enforcement to give back to our community that may not necessarily be as a police officer. And we welcome, anybody that wants to take that opportunity. We'll provide it. The last thing I wanted to tell you is It's really an exciting time for our department. We just finished our 5-year strategic plan. We worked in partnership with the community for over a year to develop 6 overarching goals for the next 5 years and beyond. And so we're doing some really, really incredible things that we've never done here in our police department. And really excited to have this opportunity to engage at that level, and looking forward to delivering on each of those objectives that the community has set out for us.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Again, that transparency is awesome. That conversation that ultimately makes the department better, makes the community better. I love that.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's a great pitch for anybody thinking about this job, or really even just visiting or moving to San Luis too.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, is, we have so many great things that make San Luis Obispo just outstanding, in my opinion. Safety and security, I think, are fundamental. And I think to come to a community like ours, we want you to enjoy our downtown and all the great restaurants and go to the beach and do those things. But you shouldn't have to worry about your safety and security. And that's the level of service, and that's the level of protection, I think, that comes from such a highly regarded community as ours. We believe in that, and all the men and women that we hire at SLO PD believe in that mission, and that's what we're trying to deliver for our community.
Amazing. Well, I feel safe here. I feel just, it's an honor to talk with you today and to live in a place where I know that the people serving on your department, serving the city, are there to make it everything that it is and can be.
Well, thank you, Nick. I wish the table was bigger. We'd have all 95 of them here, because, just the stories and the, their level of commitment would really come across if you had an opportunity to talk to some of them. And while I'm privileged to represent all of our department, just the women and men that do the work are fascinating, and they're so dedicated to our community. And I just couldn't thank them enough for the work that they do.
Well, your staff, your officers, they're welcome to come and share their story on the SLO Lounge anytime.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you again.
Well, no, thank you. Appreciate you for having me, and thanks to all your listeners that are listening in.
We will see you out there in the community, maybe even driving a police car.
Look for me on Christmas. You'll see me. Thanks again, Nick.
Thank you, Chief.